Yes, this is Mr. Glenn of ACT Prep Chicago. Here to do another answer explanation video for you. This time we're going to be working on the English part two. We did the English part one. This is for the ACT online digital exam, test one. This is the official exam on ACT's website. You can get answers, but I didn't see a place for answer explanation, so I'm providing to some of my students. So I figured I'd provide it to anyone who wants to access it. Okay. Um, the way you would access it is you would go to here, my ACT webpage. You click on test prep. Well, first, I'll show you the steps. If you go to ACT's direct page, this is what you see. From here, you have to go to students and parents, I think. Right. No, not students and parents. I do that all the time. Okay. So from eight, then you got to say the test, right? Where is it at? Sorry, I can't see. Start your journey. That's what you want to click on. And then take the ACT. Right, that's what you want. Okay, and then you get this menu. You go to test prep, you go to free practice test and prep. If you scroll down, these are the PDF versions of the tests, test one, test two. Um, we're working on test one today. And I have it loaded here, the PDF version. I have the answer key loaded because I'm checking the answers sometimes as I go for questions that I may not be 100% sure about. Um, but you could also, where is that? Wait, am I on the right one? Where was I? Oh, I was here, right? So this is the one you could do that. Um, but once you click on here, um, it says start practicing. Now these are your online practice tests. Once you click on there, it's going to take you to this page. You scroll down, and these are your practice tests here. Okay, and these are the same exact questions that you're going to see on the PDF version. I'll show you as well. So for instance, we're going to do English today. We're going to do untimed because we're going through answer explanations. I'm loading it on digitally because most of you guys take digital. I could do the PDF version. When I did test two on my channel, you guys can see I did the PDF version that I did the answer explanations from. Okay, so and we're on, I think we did one through, I'm not mistaken. Well, how many questions is 50? We did one through 25. I thought it was one through 18 or install. Was it one through 24 or one through 25? Which one was this one? Oh yeah, I remember doing this one with the musical detour. Okay, yeah, so we start with 26. So you can see they're the same. It says a case for visible storage. If the writer would delete the highlighted text, that's where we primarily lose A. We can go to the PDF version. If you click on that, you'll get this. No, not this one. You'll get that. That's your PDF version of the same test. I just want you to show you it's the same. Since we're working on English number 25, 26, you see the case for visible storage. It's case for visible storage, same title. If the writer would delete the underlined portion, the essay would primarily lose. Same thing, right? Same as that. Okay. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's see if we can finish this English. And then at that point, we would have had all the tests. Oh, there's my person. We would have had all the tests done, and then we would only need to work on the reading because I did the math and science in previous videos, and I split them into two, and that's for test one and test two. I finished all of test two. I did test two first, and now we're working on the answer explanations for test one. So if you see my channel, yeah. All right. So again, I read the title, The Case for Visible Storage. Public museums exist for two main reasons: to educate the public and provide stewardship. And it says, parentheses, legal and ethical management, care, documentation, and use of their collections. So all this is a side note. See, it's in parentheses of the word right before it, which would be to educate the public and provide stewardship charge. And I think, uh, I don't know if I read this private, but to educate the public and provide stewardship. So this would be example of what some of the stewardship it would provide, I think, because the parentheses right after the word stewardship, legal and ethical management, care, documentation, and use. Okay, yeah, that's an example. I think of the legal provide the stewardship, or it may be educating the public too. Could be both. Anyway, if the writer were to delete the highlight text, the essay would primarily lose a. What does that do? Suggesting that not all public unions provide proper stewardship. It's not a suggestion of what's proper stewardship. Not, it's basically telling you what are examples of some of that stewardship. So B, clarification of what public museum stewardship entails. It's definitely B, right? List of reasons for educating the public on stewardship. No. Description of daily tasks performed by curators. No. It's a clarification of what stewardship would be. You provide private stewardship, then in parentheses, it's going to tell you what it is. That's how parentheses work. You could also do the same with two commas or two dashes for a side note. I don't skip and just go here. I usually write the words in between because when you get to the end and ask about passage overall, it's good to have context. Unfortunately, due to space constraints, a typical museum only exhibits about 10% of the items in its collection. Okay, the other 90% remains in storage. When displaying such a small portion of artifacts, severely limits public access and therefore public education. So as I read that, that's a fragment. When I say when displaying such a small portion of artifacts severely limits. So, usually we start with when, you're going to have what? A statement, then a comma, then something else. It's usually fragment, comma, sentence. Which choice makes this sentence most grammatically acceptable? Um, I think it's D. Basically, grammatically acceptable in this sense, you're testing sentences versus fragments. So when I tell students, if you're not sure what's being tested, think about what the shortest and also think about sentences versus fragments. Choices A, B, and C are all fragments. D is a sentence. Displaying such a small portion of artifacts, that's like your subject as a verb phrase, as an action. Displaying that severely limits public access and therefore public education. That's their sentence. We say when displaying, you need a comma. With the display of, you need a comma. While displaying, you need a comma and then something else. Okay, 28. And again, I'll read all of this. Displaying such a small person limits access and therefore prohibited. Furthermore, maintaining such a large number of artifacts in storage while acquiring additional items makes finding enough suitable storage space difficult, especially for delicate items. You think about it, just think about it. So all that stuff, when you go to the museum and you see that stuff on display, they tell you that 90%, that's only 10% of all they got. So they got a whole bunch of stuff somewhere in storage, either in the museum or somewhere else. That would make sense too, because if museum is holding historical facts, as time goes by, you're going to acquire more and more historical artifacts. So, all right. Furthermore, maintain such a large number of artifacts storage while acquiring. Yeah, okay. To remain true to the goals of education and stewardship, museums should dedicate public access space to visible storage, also known as open storage. Visible storage provides ways to display many items in smaller, regular spaces, allowing more artifacts to be on exhibit. Uh, always known as, sorry, also known as open storage. This reads fine to me. Visible storage provides ways to display many items in small or regular spaces. I'm looking at the other choices just to see. Visual storage makes providing ways. What? Makes providing ways to display many items in smaller regular spaces. Now that doesn't make sense. About C. Visual storage, comma, which provides ways to display many items in smaller regular spaces, allowing more. That's a fragment. If you do C, that's a fragment. And D, also known as open storage, visible storage, comma, providing ways to display So when they put in that comma after storage, like C and D, they're starting a side note because visible storage is the subject of the sentence. Also known as storage, that's like a fragment that starts in this comma. Then visible storage is subject. When we put a comma right there after subject, a lot of times that's starting a side note. So if we start a side note with D, providing way to display many items in small irregular spaces, that means the rest of the sentence will have to finish out here, which would mean it would read visible storage, allowing more artifacts to be on exhibit. That's a fragment. Those ing verbs by themselves can't function as the main verb of a sentence. You could say visible storage allows more artifacts to be on exhibit. If you use the ing verb, you usually have to use a helping verb with it. You can say visible storage is allowing more artifacts to be. That's a sentence. Was allowing, right? But you just can't say visible storage allowing more unless you're starting off a side note. So the answer is A, because now, also known as an open storage, that's a fragment comma. Here goes our sentence. Visible storage, here's our verb, provides ways to display many items in smaller irregular shapes, spaces. That's our sentence. Then it goes on another side note, comma, allowing more artifacts to be on exhibit. That's fragment, comma, sentence, comma, fragment. Okay. So again, like another choice, a lot of students sometimes don't know what's being tested with these, but this is really sentence structure, right? Fragments and sentences, like one of our other choices. I think it was the one before. In a traditional museum display, each artifact is labeled and positioned at eye level with plenty of space between it and the other objects. This is testing pronouns. What is it referring to? Each artifact is labeled and positioned at eye level within the space between it and the other objects. Each artifact. That will work. Them would not work because each artifact is singular. Excuse me. When you're talking about the space between that artifact, each artifact one at a time. Singular. Each indicates one at a time. So it has to be it. And it would be between because each artifact is labeled and positioned at eye level with plenty of space among it. No, the space between it. Talking about the space between that artifact and the other objects. Yeah, it's definitely that's pronouns. It, them. So whenever you see pronouns, you got to be clear what, who, or what the sentence is what referring to. That's what pronoun is all about. In this case, the pronoun was it. I got to use my finger. I don't know if this pen work. I tried it before and it didn't work so well. You got to press down a little bit. So it refers to the what? Each artifact, which is what? Which is singular. Okay. That's how that works. If I should be right marking up as I go. I think I might explain it pretty well though. Which transition word is most logical in context? So whenever we see transitions, oh, I suppose between it and other objects, I don't read the transition because transition, you got to read the sentence before, which is here. Sentence containing transition and see how they're connected. So what the sentence before saying? In a traditional museum display, each artifact is labeled and positioned at eye level with plenty of space between it and other objects. That's the traditional museum display. Artifacts in visible storage spaces are placed close together and are often displayed from floor to ceiling with few labels. So this is different. This is traditional museum, right? A lot of space in between. Each artifact is labeled. This is not traditional. Artifacts in visible storage. That's the whole article. It's talking about because museums don't have enough space to do it traditionally, they should use visible storage. So visible storage is different from traditional. Okay. Um, so different transition would be conversely, right? That's the one that offers contrast or difference between the one sentence before and sentence after. Okay. Areas of a museum that cannot house a traditional display, therefore, might be ideal for a visible storage display. Ceramic pottery, where it might otherwise be positioned in individual glass cases, might be lined up on shelves behind a glass wall. Hmm. Okay. Ceramic pottery might otherwise be positioned in individual glass cases, might be lined up. Yeah, that doesn't work. You want to say ceramic pottery might otherwise be positioned in individual glass cases. Might be lined up. No. I think it reads well as is. So I try to delete it first because this test prefers less wordy, right? If multiple choices work, I go with the less wordy. So I tried the one with less wordy first. Ceramic pottery, but it didn't work. D didn't work. Ceramic pottery where it might be otherwise where ceramic pottery where it might otherwise be positioned in individual glass cases might be lined up on shelves behind. So talking about location, so where it works. Ceramic pottery, that which might otherwise be positioned in individual glass cases can be lined up on. That ceramic pottery, that which might otherwise, that could work kind of. Ceramic pottery that might otherwise be positioned in individual glass cases might be lined up on shelves. But it might otherwise be positioned in individual glass cases might be. This is a tough one for me. I like A because of location, but I like C seems to work too when I read it. Ceramic pottery that might otherwise be positioned in individual glass cases might be lined up on shelves behind a glass wall. That works and that's less wordy. I'm leaning towards C. I know B doesn't work and D doesn't work. Ceramic pottery, that which might otherwise be, why would we have to say that which? We could just say that, and that works. Ceramic pottery. So B is gone. I should use my tool, which is my what? Answer eliminator. So we're going to take B out and we're going to take D out. Ceramic pottery, where it might otherwise be positioned in individual glass cases. Yeah, see, if I do A, to me, it reads like a side note. So that's why I probably would lean towards the other one. So it might be like, to me, it would be like comma, right? And then my ceramic pottery, comma, where it might otherwise be positioned in individual glass cases, comma. See, that's like a side note. Or I could do what? Parentheses and parentheses with there. But I know with that, you don't use parentheses, right? That won't offset a side note. I'm not 100% sure where it will offset a side note, but in this case, I'm going to go with C because, again, I know this test prefers the what? It prefers the shortest. And the shortest works for me. And I'm not going to use extra words if I don't have to. So I'm going to pick C for 31. Let's check it over. That's why we got our answer key here and PDF version of the same test. Just so you can see it's the same test. If we go to 31, see that 31, same thing, right? So I'm probably where it might that, which, okay. All right, we go to the answer key all the way at the end. For the English, is the first answer key though. 31 is C. Is that what I had? Yes, I had C. Very good. Okay, 32. Um, an antique fork and spoon. Again, I could go skip down here, but I want this context because when the question is asked about the passage overall, I want to be able to answer. An antique fork and spoon fastened to a large informational board might instead be part of an entire set of silverware arranged under glass in pull-out cabinet drawers. Okay, I got you. They're talking about the difference between displays. While some artifacts can never be displayed, many pieces that can and should be viewed are not. While some artifacts can never be. Okay. At this point, the writer is considering adding the following parenthetical phrase. While some artifacts can never be displayed, whether because of light sensitivity or the request of a donor. I think that should be included because I was wondering why some artifacts would never be displayed. And that gives you a definite reasons why. Yeah, CA, because it gives no, gives specific examples to help explain why some objects may never be displayed. Yeah, that's right. B, because it offers specific examples that require a special no, because it doesn't detract from the paragraph's focus on the ideal museum layout. It diminishes the role museums play in education. It doesn't do that. I'm going to go with A. It could be C. Detracts from the paragraph's focus on ideal museum layout. I wanted there just because I had that question. While some artifacts can never be displayed, like why wouldn't you be able to display some of the artifacts? Because that's the whole point of this thing is talking about visual storage where you should be able to display. I can see C because it could detract from the paragraph's focus on the ideal museum layout. Many pieces that can should be viewed or not, whereas the museum designates areas for visible storage. It uses space efficiently, provide safe space for artifacts and allowing visitors where that make the museum unique. Yeah, I'm gonna go with A. We'll check that one too because it's not 100% right. That was 32. Yeah, 32 is F. F and A are the same thing. That's the first answer choice. Okay, which choice makes the most grammatically acceptable? While many people, while some artifacts, so I like to start at the beginning of the sentence. While some artifacts can never be displayed, that's your fragment, comma. Many pieces that can, dash, and should be viewed. No. If you're gonna put that, you wouldn't put it there. If you're gonna put it, it should be after viewed. I think many pieces that can, oh, that's a weird. Many pieces that can be viewed are not. Yeah, because the two dashes take out and should, right? B wouldn't be one dash. Many pieces that can and should. Then you put what? Be viewed or not. Now that's not where you would well, one dash, you wouldn't just stop there for one dash. You can do it for two dashes because that means and should would be taken out. So it reads, while some artifacts can never be displayed, many pieces that can be viewed are not. That reads perfectly fine. So the dash around and should, in the case of a side note, that can be removed from the sentence. It's definitely out. That's what's being tested there. Which choice is most precise in context? So this is transitions, right? Although, when, since. Um, so it's literal, right? Context, precise means we're trying to say literally. So while some artifacts can never be displayed, many pieces that can be viewed are not. A museum designates areas for visible storage. It uses space efficiently, providing safe displays for artifacts and allowing visitors greater access to independently study the works that make the museum unique. Oh, it's when. It's when. I had to read it with all the choices. When a museum designates areas for visible storage, it uses space efficiently, providing safe displays for artifacts and allowing visitors greater access to, yeah, that's definitely when. You kind of got to read each one. I was reading, whereas and although kind of work the same, they offer contrast. So, like for instance, if you say although, then your statement, a museum designates area for visible storage, then after the comma, you would be contradicting that. So a museum designates areas for visible storage. It uses space efficiently. That's not contradictory. So that's what although do. Although statement after your comma, you have to contradict or counter the statement. And although and whereas do that, but that's not what's happening here. Since is more cause and effect. Since a museum designates areas for visible storage, that's a cause. Because it does that, it uses space efficiently, providing safe displays for artifacts and alignments. I guess since could work, but when works better. When a museum does this, when it designates, but if you say since a museum designates areas for visible storage. Oh, but since they do this, actually, we don't know if they do or they don't. This article is kind of saying that they should. So when we say when they do this, right? That's better. When museums do that, when a museum designates this, but what does it do? It uses the space efficiently, providing safe space for artifacts and non-visitors great access, right? When they do this, it's not cause and effect. Since a museum designates areas for visible storage, it uses space efficiently, providing safe displays for artifacts. Yeah, when is better. It's a better way to connect those pieces, but the transition happens after too. Hope you noticed that. Okay, this question asks about the essay as a whole. So this is why we don't skip from one underlined part to another. We read all the sentences in between because one like this. The writer wants to add the following sentence. Oh, well, this is just adding, but this potentially compromised stewardship. Oh, I remember we read about stewardship. Where did we read about stewardship? Oh, here's stewardship right here. So probably in the beginning. To educate public stewardship, what they call it. Fully due to space constraints, the typical museum only exhibits about 10% of the items in the collection, and 9% remain storage, displaying such a small portion of limited access and private. Furthermore, maintaining a large number of artifacts in storage while acquiring additional items makes finding enough suitable storage space difficult, especially for delicate items. This potentially compromises stewardship, which is legal and ethical management, care, documentation. Yeah, that it could. It could compromise stewardship. Um, because stewardship is legal and ethical management, care, and documentation and use of the artifacts. But when maintaining a large number of artifacts in storage while acquiring digitized makes finding enough suitable storage space difficult, especially for delicate items. So if you don't have enough space for storage, then it's hard to manage it. It's hard to take care of it. It's hard to document it. It's hard to use it. You just got too much. So yeah, I would say it's there. To remain true to the goals of education and stewardship and see it still with that stewardship. So this particular part of stewardship, to remain true to those goals of stewardship. So this kind of says, okay, when we got too much, we compromise stewardship. But then the next sentence, to remain true to the goals of education stewardship, they should do this. Yeah, so it's a perfect place for it. And you can see the keyword stewardship is being used a lot now. But as we go down, you won't really see stewardship. And then you could say this potentially compromises stewardship. No, this is the solution. So if we say to remain true to the goals of education and stewardship, museums should dedicate public access space to visible storage. That would not compromise stewardship. That would actually promote stewardship, visible storage would. Um, and at this point, we're not talking about compromising stewardship. That was up here. We're talking about solutions so that we can promote stewardship. So yeah, I would say. All right. If the writer were to delete the first, so now we're on to a new passage, the sociable weaver's complex nest. And then we have here, so I'm reading, in the sparse yet relative green environment of the Kalahari Desert, birds known as sociable weavers build their enormous nests atop the desert's signature camel thorn trees. Wherefore, just thinking about some, sorry, something. Okay. As far as the relatively green environment of the Kalahari Desert, birds known as sociable weavers build their enormous nests atop the desert's signature camel thorn trees. Slung across the branches, each nest, which can measure up to 13 feet wide and 7 feet thick. That's enormous nest. That is a big nest. Is a sprawling community home to hundreds of birds. Wow, so they build nests that are home to hundreds of birds, communal birds, huh? I don't think nests are usually home to hundreds of birds. The nests we're used to. If the writer were to delete the phrase, which can measure up to 13 feet wide and 7 feet thick, what would it lose? It's specific information that illustrates the minimum, it's no minimum height. Specific information that underscores the enormousness of the weaver's nest, right? It tells you how big they are. Details to clarify how the weavers are able to survive. No, it's just talking about how big the nest is. Details that help explain how the weaver's nest differs from other birds. No, it's about the enormousness, how big it is. That's what they tell you. 13 feet wide and 7 feet thick. It's a detail that gives you how big a nest is. Yeah. A weaver nest does not resemble a common bowl-like bird nest. That's what we used to do, bird-like. It's like a bowl-like. That's what we used to. Although the weavers use typical materials such as sticks, grass, and feathers to construct their nests, the nests look more like um, disorganized piles. Um, Transverse cups called the weaver's nest does not. Although the weavers use typical materials, the nests look more like disorganized piles. Large knots. The writer wants to emphasize the unusual appearance of the weaver's nest by using playful language to evoke a specific image. So what's the key word? Playful language. Disorganized piles is not playful. Carelessly plunk down haystacks, collection of disparate items, large knots. Um, and here again, shortest doesn't work, right? Large knots. Let me see if something built within each nest are as many as 100 for 104 to 6, 104 to 6 inch wide chambers. Okay, so it's 100 chambers. Wow. Small chambers, 4 to 6 inch wide. The bird enters a chamber by flying to the underside of the nest. It squeezes through 1 inch. Okay, all right. Just how it goes in. So the birds look more like unusual appearance. Ray wants to emphasize the unusual appearance of the weaver's nest using playful language to evoke a specific image. So it's unusual. We want to use playful language and we want to get a specific image. Disorganized piles. That is a disorganized piles of what? I don't know. Carelessly plunked down haystacks. Uh, there you can see that. Collection of disparate items. That's not specific. That's not a specific image. Disorganized piles is like piles of what? That's not particularly specific. Large knots could work, but I think plunk down haystacks is more specific. It's a specific image. I don't know if it's playful. It is unusual, I suppose. That's 37. Let's take a look at 37. Yes, that's B. Okay. All right. But built within each nest are as many as 104 to 60. That's a weird way to write it. I'm thinking 104, but it's not 104. It's 100, and they are 4 to 6 inch wide chambers. So 100 of these small chambers, up to 100, not necessarily. A bird enters a chamber by flying to the underside of the nest. It squeezes through a 1 inch wide entrance hole and continue up. This is parallelism. I can see while I'm reading it. A bird enters the chamber by first thing is flying, and you see the last thing continuing. So we need an ing squeezing probably. Yeah. You see that parallelism. A bird enters a chamber by first flying to the underside of the nest, second squeezing through a 1 inch wide entrance hole, C, and last thing, continue up a passageway. They all are in ing form. That's verb parallelism. Um, in each chamber, up to five of the sparrow-sized birds can huddle. Wow, five in a 4 to 6 inch. They must be small. Five sparrow-sized birds can hunt as much as five as a group together when the Kalahari nicely calls a combine together for body heat. Which choice is least redundant? Redundant means repetitive. We want the one that's least repetitive. Birds can huddle as a group together Grouped together is redundant. We don't need that. Usually the list redundant is the shortest. We go for D. For warmth during the cold Kalahari nights. Where's the sentence start? That's a long sentence. A bird enters the flame and continue up past all areas. In each chamber, up to five of the sparrow-sized birds can huddle for warmth during the cold. Yeah, that's good enough. Huddle. Huddle as a group together. That huddle and as a group together means the same. You can say the other ones all together. That's the same as huddle, so we don't need to say all together again. Staying warm when the temperature drops and gets colder. That's colder and dropping is the same thing. Stay warm when the temperature plummets at night and it's cold. That's all saying the same thing. When the temperatures plummet and it's cold, that's redundant. You're doing too much. You're using too many words to say the same thing. All right. The multi-chamber construction of the Weaver nest has drawn comparisons to that of an apartment building. Indeed, the nests exemplify communal living at its most effective, because this is pronoun reference. We're referring to communal living, which is one thing. The nests exemplify communal living at its most effective. And this is the wrong there anyway. If it were plural, it would be THEIR, because we're doing plural possessive. They're most effective. Um, the next exemplify communal living when it's at it is, no, and it is, that's wrong. IT apostrophe S is it is, that would not work. When it's at it is live when it's at it is most effective. No, it's most effective. It's possessive. So they give you a lot of ways to eliminate on that one. Okay, we off into another passage, 41. The artful stitch of Panchnatab. I think we did this was on a previous ACT if I'm not mistaken, but it may be different. Oh, she depicts flowers with layers of petals, intricate spirals and rosettes, teardrops bending within circles and dizzying mazes of lines, embroidering them in vibrant reds, blues, pinks, yellows, and greens of fabric of delicate silk or cotton. Which choice best maintains the stylistic pattern of description established early in the sentence? She depicts flowers with layers of petals. She depicts flowers with layers of petals, intricate spirals and rosettes, teardrops bending within circles, and dizzying mazes of lines. That works. Like A works fine. Mazes that she creates. So many lines. She depicts flowers with layers of petals. Intricate. I think that's just too vague. So many lines. I like the shortness of it. Layers of petals, intricate spirals and rosettes, teardrops, and dizzying mazes of lines. Yeah, still my lines. Yeah, that's it. Um, Peng Zhong, it's a name for you. Siriathusuk Sikon is a master. I'm not gonna get stuck on the name, right? With all respect to who she is a master of passemental or flower cloth embroidery. The most difficult of the century's oldest Hmong needleworks. Of the centuries. You're talking about centuries old. That's how old it is. It's multiple centuries. We're not doing possessive. The centuries oldest. Is you trying to say the most difficult of the centuries old Hmong needlework arts? You're saying Pajna is the most difficult of the centuries old arts. So you got a lot of arts that are hundreds of year olds. Project time is the most difficult, but we're not trying to use centuries to own the oldest or to own the arts. It's just saying how many years old it is. So no ownership, no apostrophe to show possession. All right. Pageant top is increasingly made in lighter, softer shades today. This don't seem like it fits though, right? She's been creating stitched textiles since she was a young woman living in northern Laos. For the past several decades, she's been designing pageant top in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where she also teaches her craft. Yeah, that's interesting. That pageant top is increasingly made in lighter, softer shades today. Um, what did they say they were darker shades? Like in the past, they were darker shades, vibrant colors. If you are gonna make it, you can put it there, but I just it feels like it's out of place. Kept because it compares style with that of modern. It places the subject of the essay in a modern context. It detracts from the paragraph's focus on the various styles of ancient Hmong needle artworks. It adds a detail that is irrelevant to the paragraph's introduction of Payne's Round's connection to. Yeah, I think it's. Yeah, they're talking about her connection to it, right? Yeah. So, and then they start talking about her at that point, not just Podge Taub in general. If you're going to put that sentence, it should be when they talked about Podge Taub in the beginning, when they just talk about in general. She depicts flowers and letters. Oh, it says she, though. That's not talking about in the general. It's talking about all about her. This paragraph is about her. So just putting out how Podge Taub is increasingly made in lighter, softer shades today. That's like you say, it says it perfectly. It's irrelevant to the paragraph's introduction to who she was. Pan Jong and her connection to Pajnatat. Okay, 44. Flower cloth, commonly as a shirt, dress coat, or collar, is made to be worn as clothing and, depending on the amount of needlework on the piece, is designed either for everyday wear or for a special occasion. The best placement for the highlight text would be flower cloth is made to be worn as clothing. That would be clothing, commonly as a shirt, dress, or collar. Everyday wear for a special occasion. Yeah. Commonly as a shirt, dress coat, or collar. That's different types of clothing. It should go after the word clothing. So that's a side note. But what is it? What does it give you examples of? It gives you examples of different type of clothing. So that's why you put it right after clothing. Which choice most clearly builds on the information provided early in the sentence about a common theme in Pal-Natar patterns and images? I want to build on the information provided early in the sentence about a common theme in Pal-Natar patterns and images. The choice most clearly built on the information provided early in the sentence. With pattern names such as elephant's foot. Oh, I forgot to read this part too. Um, with pattern names such as elephant's foot and snail house, and images of animals framed by geometric designs, and we want to choose a choice that builds on the information provided early in the sentence about a common theme with animals. Positive patterns are versatile. Only a master artist is able to create positive tile clothing for special occasions. Positive tile patterns are colorful, celebrate the natural world, right? With patterns named such as elephant foot, snail's house, and images of animals framed. This is about the natural world. Yes. What distinguishes Pattern Town from other Hmong needle artworks are the artist's use of tiny, tight stitches and several complex techniques. One technique is reverse applique, in which shapes are cut out from rather than added on top of the embroidered fabric. Another technique is reverse applique, comma, in which shapes, reverse applique, which shapes are cut out. Yeah, I think it's as is. One technique is reverse applique. That's your sentence, comma. Now we're going to tell you about this technique in which shapes are cut out from. Why not? Let's see. One technique is reverse applique and shapes are cut out. No, you don't want to do and because it's not like and is like saying something else. But they gave you the name of the technique and then they tell you about the technique. So you're going in more detail, almost like, for example, um, D is one you would lean towards because it's shortest, but it doesn't work. One technique is reverse applique, comma. Shapes are cut out from rather than added on top of the embroidered fabric. That's two sentences. So if we had D, that would be a sentence. One technique is reverse applique, that's a sentence. Then shapes are cut out from rather than that's a sentence. So it's either A or B. I'm gonna go with A because one technique is reverse applique, which shapes are cut out from. So when you say the technique is reverse applique, which shapes, reverse applique, which shapes. And so it's like saying the reverse applique shapes, which shapes. But no, it's kind of saying reverse applique, then it's comma. Now I'm gonna give you a name of in which shapes, as opposed to this applique shapes something. So without the comma B would be like the appliques shape something. That's not what we're trying to say. We're trying to say in which this is the process of reverse applique. Another is elaborate overstitching, then colon. Thousands of layered stitches are applied to its surface. Which one makes the central gravity? The surface of the fabric. Yeah, because what surface elaborate overstitching? Thousand layered stitches are applied to its what surface of what? So this would be wrong because it's unclear pronoun reference. I say the surface of the it is here again. What's the we say their surface? Whose surface? Their surface. You don't have a reference for who there it is, but so you need to name it, the surface of the fabric. So that's unclear pronoun reference. That's when a pronoun is not a good idea. Okay, Peng Zhong regrets that most people she knows today wear only regular clothes, which writers consider revise the underlying text about mass produced. Should the writer make this revision? I think so because regular is a very vague word. It creates a clear contrast between the homogeneous styles of clothing that are popular today and the handcrafted project type. Yes, because the revision emphasizes present desire for her to be sold on large scale in stores. No, it doesn't make it seem that. No, because the original word reinforces the idea that although patterned clothing can be used for everyday wear, it should be safe for special occasions. But I don't think that's what she was saying. She regrets that most people she knows today wear only regular clothes. She wants them to wear it for, she doesn't want them just to, wait. She regrets that most people she knows wear only regular clothes. When she was growing up in Laos, she explains she had few items of clothing, but each garment she owned was handcrafted powder towel. She still wears flowers cloth every day and would like to inspire others to do so. So she wants them to wait, only wear only mass-produced clothes. Maybe not. Let's look at this again. She regrets that most people she knows today wear only regular clothes. She to mass produced. She regrets that most people she knows today only to wear only mass produced clothes. Yeah, different from that offers a difference of the handcrafted polish and tile that's not mass produced. I assume mass produced is like factory, right? Yes, because the revision creates a clear contrast between the homogeneous styles of clothing the proper date and the handcrafted. Yeah, it does that. It creates a clearer contrast between the homogeneous styles of clothing that are probably homogeneous, like mass produced. Everybody's wearing the same thing. And then the handcrafted pops and tile, that was unique because people were handcrafting it so it's unique for every time they made a new piece. It wasn't like a factory or machine just recreate the same thing. It emphasized the revision turned to mass produce emphasizes Pao Zhong's desire for her handcrafted pouch Natab to be sold on a large scale in stores. I don't think that's the point she was making, that she wanted her stuff to be sold on a large scale in stores. She just wanted them to wear the pouch Natab. She didn't wasn't talking about how much. The original word reinforces the idea, the original word was regular, reinforced the idea that although positive top clothing can be used for everyday wear, it should be said. I don't think that's the point she was making either. Because she wore it every day. She said she still wears flower cloth every day and like inspire others to do so. So flower cloth is the positive top. So she wants them to wear it every day. So no, that wouldn't be right. And because the original word more specifically describes a type of clothing, Peng Zhong disapproves of. So she disapprove of regular clothing? She kind of did because she wanted to wear pouch and tie. I would go with A though. I like the idea. A better contrast between homogeneous styles because mass produced, everybody wearing the same thing, and the handcrafted pouch and top. To me, that's better. I like that better as to what's happening there. So sometimes with these, you got to read a little bit before and after for context. I don't know if you've noticed too that I didn't pay attention to yes, yes, no, no. I paid attention to the reasons and which one was stronger. That's how I chose this one. Let's take a look at 48. Yeah, 48 was for A, the first choice, so I was correct. Okay, which transition word or phrase, if any, is most logical in context? So transition word, we got to read before and after. When she was growing up in Laos, she explained she had few items of clothing, but each garment she owned was handcrafted. What did it say afterwards? She still wears flower cloth every day and would like to inspire others to do so. So that goes along with it. Uh, yeah, that's just a continuation. There's no need for any transition at all. Yeah, yeah, it's D. You don't need to transition. Definitely not, however, besides, because you're not saying something different. It says every garment she owned was pant, pants, and top, and then she still wears flower cloth every day, which is the pants and top, and want other people to do so. So it goes along with it. You could do, for example, that goes along with it, but I don't think this is an example of the left side. But each garment she owned, when she was growing up, right? She had few clothes, but each garment was pouch and top. That's not an example of her growing up. She's still wearing flower cloths every day. She still wears. That's not an example of when she went up. It's continuing the story. We don't need a transition. We just continue with the story. So she. Which of the following true statements, if added here, would best build on the ideas presented in this paragraph and connect to the final sentence of the essay? So we want a true statement. One of these following true statements, if added here, where is here or here? Oh, you know, we like to inspire the students of painting, teaches Positive Top in art museums, including at the Smithsonian Institution, where some of her textiles are on permanent display, and in community settings around Philadelphia. That's where she teaches. Art museums, Smithsonian. Wow. Peng Zhong is showing a new generation the joys of Positive Top and Paj Natal or Intal and beautiful handcrafted clothing. Okay, which of the following true statements, if added here, would best build on the ideas presented in the paragraph and connect to the final sentence of the essay? She loves when people, no matter what their ethnicity, wear traditional clothing every day. She often teaches Padma to among adults her age who want to learn new techniques. Recently, she worked with 9 young Hmong women in the formal apprenticeship. One of her own favorite pieces. One of her own favorite pieces tells the story of her family. I hit this on that accident. Okay, let's get this a little bit more. So it's where she teaches these classes. She wants other people to wear the positive top. She teaches the positive top in the museums and in community settings around Philly. Um, sh- and it says, and connect to the final sentence, and she is showing a new generation the joys. Our new generation, that was the children. Um, Nine Young, right? That was it. She recently worked with Nine Young among women. Oh, no, not children, new generation. So Nine Young women, that's the new generation. Yeah, that's it. All right. So we're not gonna end the test. Because I didn't we just did half of them. One thing I do want you to see though is I was thinking about it. If you look at the PDF, something very interesting about the new ACT. Um, you see, each section has section questions that aren't scored. So it's a way that I think, and I think they do this on the official test too, what I read from the website. Or yeah, each section will has a certain number of items that aren't scored. It's so unfortunate way to be because it's like you could do really well on these, but not well on some of these. And they won't score, and you don't know where they're going to be. So for this one, it's at the end, but it may not always be at the end. It could be in the middle. Like if you, this is the English. If you look at the math where they didn't score it, they just randomly they spread it throughout. So you never gonna know which ones aren't scored. And the reading was the beginning ones. And that's really bad for the reading because you could do really well in that first passage, and a lot of students don't even get to finish reading, right? So that could be where they're strong, and then they have to guess at the end. So your weaker scores are gonna show real weak if they put the not score one in the beginning. But I guess they'll curve it accordingly, I suppose. I imagine they have to. Because a lot of students don't even get to the end. That's crazy that they put it in the beginning. Seems like they put it more towards the middle end, and then they didn't score these in the middle. They say, I think that's for research purposes, so they know how to write questions, whether it's too hard, too easy, whatever. I don't know if I like that idea, but what are you gonna do? You know, that's they give you the rules. You gotta do what the rules tell you. I tell my students that all the time, don't get caught up in, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that, which is what I'm telling you now. But yeah. All right. So, got one more section, I think, the reading to do, and that'll be about it for the answer explanations. See you next time.